Okay, we're live. Hello, everybody. My name is David Nahodyl with the Atlanta FileMaker Developers Group, and we're here. Here's our crowd. We're starting. We've got a good crowd here today. Everybody wave. Hey. Up here too. Around here. I got one. All right. So before we get started, we'll start by going around the room and doing introductions. And would you like to start here, and then we'll go around that way?
Sure, sir. I'm Ryan. I work here at 360 Works. I've been in FileMaker for about 2.5 years now. I guess that's it. I'm Arnold. I work here at 360 Works. I've been using FileMaker for about a year now.
I'm Jesse Perez. I'm a apprentice developer here at 360, and this is my second day here. So I'm here to absorb as much as I can.
That's great. You said you were fresh. This is very fresh then.
Todd Daniel, I was an in-house developer. I am now transitioning to some strange new world. Not sure where.
Erica Kidd, I'm with Blue Feather. Christy with Mac Advantage.
Tom Daniel, a FileMaker trainee wannabe.
Mark Fromeld, novice FileMaker trainee. Trying to mess around with.
Jesse Barnum, I work here at 360 Works. I do a lot of product development.
My name is Dale Long. I'm a manager and in-house developer for our lab at Emory University called the NIH Tetramer Core facility. I'm looking to improve my FileMaker chops with this new version.
I'm Rohit. I've been doing FileMaker for 3.5 years, and I'm currently transitioning between jobs.
And quick flip around here. All right.
Joe Martin. I work at 360 Works. I've been a developer for about 2.5 years now. Yeah, just want to see the new features in 16.
Great. And my name is David Nahodyl. I'm with Blue Feather, and we do FileMaker development and technology consulting, as well as web and mobile apps. So today we're going to be talking about the new features in FileMaker 16. I'm going to switch this over. This can be a very interactive meeting, so everyone who's looking online, we definitely want to hear all of your questions and comments about everything. I'll bring this down. Okay. Let's see, is this going on here? Yep. Yeah.
People are seeing on the stream?
They're seeing my screen right now, yep.
Okay.
And so FileMaker 16 just came out, but after our last monthly meeting, right?
May 9th.
May 9th, was that? Yeah, so just a couple days after. So who here has used 16 so far? I've used it a lot. Anyone? Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of people have a lot of experience, or at least a little bit of experience with it so far. I really like it so far. I think this is one of the biggest updates for FileMaker probably since 12 or 13. It's got a lot of features that I've really been looking for, and it's been very beneficial to have the JSON processing and the curl features and the new Windows interface, which we're going to show here in a second. So I just think overall it's a really major update to the platform. And if you've got any clients who are on 12 or 13, they'll see a really big improvement, and it'll be a big upgrade for them. The first thing that I want to mention about 16 is the new Windows user interface. Sometimes when we have upgrades from different versions of FileMaker, you get it installed, and your users kind of boot it up and they're like, oh, well, everything looks exactly the same. Well, this is the case where the new version of FileMaker is going to have an immediate change to the way things look, particularly on the Windows side, where FileMaker has redone the whole user interface. If we look at kind of what it looked like before, there was a big gray box that would kind of be your background for FileMaker. And all of your windows had to live within this gray box. If you had a multi-window solution, everything lived within here, and you could minimize it, and you could end up with kind of like double scroll bars happening as you had windows kind of off-center in it. But with FileMaker 16, this background gray Windows box is all gone, and it's all just floating windows like you'd have on the Mac version of FileMaker. So Windows users will immediately see this, particularly if you have a multi-window solution. This makes it a lot easier for solutions on Windows to not be maximized. In my personal experience, I've found it kind of a pain to work with multi-window solutions on Windows, which is kind of funny. Windows on Windows are a problem. But 16 with its the new interface for this really helps a lot with that. And in my experience, you don't feel the need as much to always have everything maximized like you would with 15, just to avoid having to deal with the double scroll bars. So if we make new windows in here, if I'm just going to do a new window for this is just the FileMaker server sample file. You see, these are just two independent windows. If I had multiple monitors, I could have one on one window and one on the other window. And that just wasn't possible with FileMaker before on Windows with 15 and earlier. So just immediately, if you've got clients on Windows, this is going to be a really noticeable upgrade. Just the first time they open up your solution is going to look and feel very different. One other thing which is common across both the Mac and Windows side as far as just general interface things, the little zoom toolbar that used to be down at the bottom is now gone. That's on both the Mac and the Windows side, which is kind of nice because it allows you to create solutions which look a little bit more like they're not necessarily FileMaker. Like, you're not going to open up and be like, oh, I recognize that toolbar. This is a FileMaker solution. You can make things with a more minimal interface and just focus on the pieces that you want to show to people. Do you have a question?
So in your opening scripts or whatever to a specific file, you don't necessarily have to say hide those toolbars anymore. That's when.
Well, you still want to hide the toolbars and the status bars if you don't want to show those.
Right.
But there was a bar along the bottom in
Right.
15, which is not there anymore in 16. And that had like your zoom in and zoom out buttons on it. And there wasn't a way to turn that off.
I thought there was.
In 15, not the one along the bottom, as far as I know. But that's gone now. It just doesn't exist anymore. And so you can get a more minimal user interface with 16 than you would be able to before. So I just wanted to cover this pretty quickly on Windows. This is really nice. And like I said, I know a lot of my Windows users are really happy about it. And it has, for me, opened up more flexibility in developing Windows solutions, particularly multi-window solutions. All right, so let me close that. OK, now let's get 16 on the Mac here. So I'm going to make just a test file on here. For developers, when you're working through here, one of the new things, I'm kind of covering some of these minor issues that are going to keep popping up as we go through some other things. So I'm covering a few minor things to kind of get them out of the way at the beginning. The data viewer has been improved in FileMaker 16. So when you go in to add a watch expression, you now have a engine going on here, like when you're doing calculations and writing scripts. So if I do something here like get desktop path, as I type in here, in the data viewer for evaluating expressions in here. Another really nice thing is that it actually automatically evaluates these things as you type them in. So if I go in here and I'm typing, see now I've typed in something invalid, so it's gone. If I concatenate another bit of a string on here, it automatically evaluates and puts the results down there at the bottom. So as you're working on something, you can see it changing without having to go back and click evaluate over and over again. Now there's a checkbox for that. There's this automatically evaluate checkbox right down here. If you've got a calculation that takes a while, like what we just did is very fast, but if you have a calculation that takes a while to process, you don't want to just be constantly reevaluating it over and over again. You can uncheck that automatically evaluate checkbox, and it'll behave a little more traditionally, where you'll type in your calculation, you'll do your edits for it, and then you'll hit evaluate with this button right here. And it won't do it until you click that evaluate button. There we go. Yeah, yes. So yeah, if I type in here, let me turn this back on to automatically evaluate. Anytime I type anything, it's going to immediately try to reevaluate it. So all this is invalid, so it can't show anything. But as soon as I make this valid again by closing these quotes, it pops back in there. So it's really nice. 15 didn't have that, but 14 and 15 did have the improved script editor and calculation engine, and so now that's there in the data viewer as well. Okay, so let's talk about one of the new features in 16, which is the concept of cards. I'll use the local version here. Okay, so in 16, there's a new layout window, or there's a new window type, which is cards. And this is a concept that has come from mobile apps a lot, where you'll have a new window pop up and kind of like gray out your background. There were some weird ways you could do that before, using a popover and putting something off your screen, and then it would resize, and you could kind of fake it a little bit, but it wasn't great. But cards are now native in here. They look great on FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Go and WebDirect. It's a new window type, and you create them by just using the new window script steps. So let's take a look right in here. Let's see if we can zoom in.
Where did this demo come from? Is this in the FileMaker Studios?
Yeah, and I'll make these available for everyone to download too. They posted a download link, or they sent it to me, and it hasn't. So I'll post the link up for it, and also provide the download files just in case the download link is still having issues. So this is what it looks like when you're making a new window using the new window script step. You can select the card style window, and rather than actually making a new separate window, it'll actually just do a pop, kind of like a popover, and put it in a position that you select. So this is what a card window looks like. Now in this case, it's just kind of a zoom in on the picture. But you can see we've grayed out the background here. Now that's an optional thing. You don't have to gray out the background. But you can control the size and position of the window, so it doesn't have to be in the center. You can position it somewhere else if you want. And there's also a close checkbox, which you can see right here. If you have that, there's a little X that shows up in the top left corner. Otherwise, you can click on it again, and it'll close that window. Let's go back and see an example of this. So how do we do it here? This is the script step, the new window, and you can select card from the options. You can name it and give it its position. Let's go through here, and this is a sample. We can say, I'll skip this, I'll show you some more interesting things. All right, let's go back and see some examples of this. So in here, this is a list of properties. If we select one of these properties, a very nice way to display this is in a card view. These cards that are opening up are actually full layouts in FileMaker. So you make another layout, you position it, it's just another layout on your list, and then you select that layout as the layout for the card to go to. So it's not like a popover. When you have a popover, that popover and the contents of the popover exist on your current layout. But with the card views, it's a totally separate layout, and you just select it like you're making a new window and going to it. It's just a particular style of the window.
Now in this case, when you clicked on that card and you brought that picture up, for each one of those pictures, then do you have to do a separate layout for each one of those pictures, or is it?
So this is done with one layout that just has a container on it that's showing the picture that's in there.
Cool.
So are these fully fledged layouts? Like anything?
They're total complete layouts. You can do anything on them that you would do with a normal layout.
So if you had a button in your card that was go to a different layout, the card would navigate to a different layout.
That's right.
Okay.
In fact, you can navigate to the layout like directly in the script step. Rather than doing a separate step with it, it's and then and the go-to related record as well. Like you can go directly to the layout as soon as it opens.
Because essentially it's just a new window script step with some different view.
That's right.
But now you can choose the layout when you open the window without going to go to related records. So you can avoid, script triggers if you have an on-record load on your original window.
And some flashing and things like that too.
You don't have to disable the script triggers or anything like that. So that's for all windows.
It's really nice that they are completely separate layouts, because they let you do things that you couldn't otherwise do and display kind of information over it.
In your demo, those small pictures, are they like smaller JPEG versions that's on this layout, and then when you click on it, clicking the second layout that has a bigger JPEG version?
They're just smaller container fields
Okay.
that are on the layout. And then when you go to the other one, the layout is just a container field that's
With
taking up
bigger.
the whole layout.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So are those on Windows Model?
Yes.
Yes.
To the window, not to other windows that are open.
So I can't click on the background back here now until this one is dismissed. And since it is regular layout, in this case, it's got a button on it as well. And when I tap on it, it's doing a go to next record. So you can flip through it, and it's a full layout, which
Okay,
is
so
really
where's
nice.
that button, or
It's just it's overlaying on the whole thing on it.
so it's
So just clicking anywhere on it is a transparent button, and you just click on it, it goes through it.
Did you create that button? That's button.
So that's the close option
Yeah,
in the dialog.
could I see that layout?
Well, before we go further, I want to show you another really cool thing about this. So because you can control where these cards show, there's more that you can do with it other than just popping up something in the center. So here's a menu in the top right. Rather, before maybe we would have done something like a popover to expand that. But with cards, we can actually click this and have it pop up right there where the menu is.
And so it looks like it overlaps the side of the screen. So you get so where a pop-up, can you have it overlap the side of the screen?
No, pop-up's going to fit within your window.
Right, but this can overlap to the side.
Yeah.
You could even put it off of the screen entirely if you wanted to.
Cool.
So it's really nice. And here we've got it graying out the background, but you don't have to gray out the background. So you could, it'd still be a little bit modal to do this, but you could kind of fake a portal with a sub-summary by using a layout, sorting it, and putting in the sub-summary parts in there, and kind of have a fake portal with a sub-summary embedded on your layout. Because it's a whole separate layout with its own, its own found set, its own set of records and sorting.
Everything outside the curve disappears, right?
So you got to click on something. If you click outside the card, it doesn't let you do anything
You have
out
to do
there.
an escape.
You have to have a close or like an exit button. It's kind of like a modal window that pops up. If you don't have a close button on that, your users can just end up being stuck. So you have to handle that.
You couldn't really treat it as like an embedded.
No, like I said, if you had a kind of a weird case where they wanted to see it for a minute, you could lay it on your layout without having to remove them from the screen that they were on completely.
That's something I just read about cards recently in the last couple of days, is that they're not web direct compatible.
It does it in a, it does it in a, I don't know if it does it in a new window. It handles cards, it just displays them a little differently. The script step still works.
I haven't tried it, but I heard that people have problems with it opening like as a mother window, but it didn't actually open a new window in the browser, so it doesn't really do anything.
Because the FileMaker documentation simply says cards are not compatible.
Yeah.
I think it says, what I was reading, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought it handled it differently. They don't display as a card. I know that. I don't know if it does it in like how WebDirect normally handles a new window where it does it over. I'm not entirely sure. We could test that because I actually have it on a server here. So let's see. 16 demo. Let's do this here. Take a look. So where's our cards? So there we go. It does it in a new window like that, and it still works. So you can click in it.
Can you exit out of it though?
This one, I don't know. Can I? I don't know if I can exit.
What if you hit back in the browser?
So it's like it behaved like the new Windows script step normally does in WebDirect.
How would you close it?
You'd have to use a close Windows script step, or in this case, we don't have the close button on here. Oh, there we go. I clicked off of it and it went back.
How'd you do that?
So let's open this one up. Did it like a new Windows script step. And then this one doesn't have a close button, so I can hit exit on here. But let's go back and try this one again. There was a close. If I click off of it here, top left corner.
It's hidden. Yeah.
I think actually what it is I clicked it enough times and it got to the end of the thing where it automatically
Oh.
closed it. So it got to the end of the records and the script is done so that when you get to the last record and you click it again, it closes the window. It uses the close window script step.
If you jump back to FileMaker for a second, wasn't one of the cards you showed didn't have a little close X on the corner?
Yep. And then
So-
it did not appear.
So that did not, the close X does not appear in WebDirect.
And I think it's because that X is part of the card window layout. like the graying out the background and things. It's not part of the layout itself, which is what we're seeing. In
So if you were going to use this for WebDirect, you'd have to maybe put a button there that would be an X, and then you use that. Okay.
Yeah, and so if we look back in the WebDirect one, where did that go? If we do the menu, it looks really weird, but we've got an exit button, and so it works fine.
Right.
Not a good user experience, but it's,
Yeah.
it functions.
But you could be able to set it up to say, look, if it's a WebDirect, you have to do it.
You do it a different way. Yeah. So cards, I think, are really neat. There's a lot of potential there. I like the ability to do sorting and subsummaries and things without taking the user away from the layout. So if you're looking at a customer and you wanted to see their orders, with a breakdown by month, you could have a customer detail view and then use a card to pop open the list of their orders, sub-summarized by month, for example.
Or in the case of this person, the CAP station, whatever, you can be able to click on that and get an image plus facts and figures about that.
Yeah. All right, so let's close that one. Is there an exit? No, it's not an exit here. Okay, close out of that. Okay, let's open up another file here. So another really cool tool which has been added in FileMaker 16 is the layout object window. So here we have a solution. Let's say I've been working on this, and I've got some parts that are overlapping. This is a very simple teacher and student database. We have a teacher with a set of related students here. We can pick the gender for each student. And let's say I wanted to color, I wanted to have an icon to the side where I could, have in this case, I've got a blue box and a pink box. But something is wrong here, and I'm only seeing the blue box. So this is a grouped object. If I select this, I'm not selecting just the one object here. There's no hide parameters on here, but we can see from the little eye icon that something is being hidden on there. These things are grouped. If I go here and say arrange ungroup, I can see the pink box under it, and it has its own hide icon or its hide calculation on it as well, but it's not working properly. So in 15 and earlier, the only way that I could go in and edit that calculation for the hide feature would be to go in and ungroup these objects, move something off so that I could see that pink box, which is under the blue box here. And I'll zoom in a little bit. And then put it back, align everything back up again properly, and if I had any buttons on the group or something, I have to recreate those buttons on there. So it'd be kind of a big pain. But with 16, there's a new icon up here, right up at the top, next to the inspector window, which is the layout objects window. I can click this, and this will show all of the objects which are on the layout. So here we can see I've got some text. These are some of the labels where we've got gender, last name, first name. I can click on these to view these objects. It'll go and select them. And when you click on them, it selects them in the inspector as well, so you can make changes to them. Here we can see the portal and things that I have inside the portal now. It knows that these are the objects that are in the portal. We can see the group. There's a grouped object, and it's actually, let me slide this over so you can see it. When I selected that group, it selected this group of squares, which I've put in here. I can expand this further and see I've got two objects in here, blue rectangle and pink rectangle. These show the name that you put in for the object in the name field right here in this first tab of the inspector. So I named these objects so that I could recognize them easily, blue rectangle and pink rectangle. So if I want to edit the pink rectangle, I no longer have to select this, degroup it, move something off, select the thing behind it, go through that whole ordeal. I can just pick it in the layout objects window here, go to the data, and look and see what the gender or what the calculation is, which is having a problem. Here I'm saying if the gender is F, I want to hide it. I'll say no, that's not right. I want to hide it if the gender is M. So I can really easily find the object that I want to work with, make the changes to the calculations related to it, and without affecting the whole thing. Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say that's awesome. I didn't know.
Yeah. This is a really cool tool. Now, it actually gets even a little bit better than this. we can right-click on this and select some of these options: hide all other objects, hide objects in front, or hide objects in front and back of it. So if I want to actually like click on this and start moving some things around and dragging it on here, I can use these eyes on the right side to hide specific objects on the layout. Now this is just for you as the developer in layout mode. It doesn't affect what is actually hidden or shown. If I go through here and I have the word students hidden, and I hide it like this, it's just not showing for me, the developer, while I'm in layout mode. If I go back to browse mode, it's still there. But if I go back into layout mode now, that object is still not visible. Yes. But it doesn't, it's only for layout mode. It's not the same as like hiding it, like using the hide object calculation. You can also, so here I want to see the pink rectangle. I want to actually see it on the layout. I want to be able to click it and work with it. I can right-click this and say hide objects in front. The blue rectangle is in front of the pink rectangle right now, so I can't select it. But if I select hide objects in front, it knows that that blue rectangle is there in front of it, and it gets rid of it. I think we can even rearrange these. And this is the z-axis, actually, what we're seeing right here. If I turn this one back on, the blue rectangle is actually now behind the pink rectangle.
So you can change the grouping.
So I didn't change the grouping here. I think we can. I think I can just actually, can I drag that in? No, so you can't change the grouping in there. I can't drag that in. But this does allow you to modify your z-axis of layout objects just by dragging them around in here. If I bring blue rectangle on top, it's now on top of the pink rectangle object.
Now, again, I see another object, another one of your hiding thing at the top. What's that? That one, yeah.
What does this button do? I think this is just for hiding things that we filtered on here. If I search for blue, I can type in here blue rectangle, and I think this will, let's do a hide all. There we go. This makes, I think this makes everything visible. There we go. Show all objects on the layout.
Okay.
So if you've hidden some things, this will restore it all on there. And then we can also narrow it down to certain types of objects using this on the left. So if you don't know what you're searching for exactly, you're like, oh, I've got a million objects on here, but there's one text object in there somewhere that I'm trying to find. We could bring this down to be text objects only, for example, and now here's the text layout objects that are showing here.
Text would be really cool if you're localizing something. And you need to find every static English label in the layout and replace it with like a merge field that would be like English or Spanish or French.
It'll make it very easy for you to select all those then, yeah. Because you just click on them and it goes and it finds it and highlights it. It moves your window to it as well. So look, that's off the layout now. I click on that and it's going to jump over to it.
But now it's still showing the other objects, right? It just doesn't show them in the layout objects.
That's right. Yeah, they're still visible on there. This is just like a search filter. So just like if I type in here and I type in blue, it only finds the blue rectangle. But it still shows the hierarchy to get to as well, which is also really nice because it's embedded in a portal. It's in a group in a portal, and so we can see that whole path to get to it. Again, if I click on it, it'll jump over to it.
I feel like this is an important feature to know about because if you don't know about this and then you're like, oh, there's the problem. The button's right there. It just needs to be changed. You go to layout mode and it disappears.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you have complex layouts, things layered on top of each other, sometimes I'll do a solution where there's a popover that has a filtered list of things from our related set of records, but if something gets taken out of there, it's going to show the ID instead, so you can have to layer your popovers and things, or not your popovers, like your pop-up menus.
And also what about if you have objects that are like off the layout, and it's like JSON information, whatever, and you're just trying to find that, you can be able to use the same thing.
You could find, yeah, you can use it to find any layout object by name if you give the object a name. And here in this name field right there, where I named this one blue rectangle. Or by type if you're searching, and you can filter down and find any things on there.
So the text objects, that's not the name of the text object, that's just the text in the text object.
Yeah, and it shows that here in quotes. I think I can name it still and call this like page title. And see, now it doesn't show it in quotes.
I see, okay.
Because that's the name of the object rather than the content of the text itself.
That would be great for accidentally duplicating objects and having to copy.
Find all copy things.
Yeah.
Yep, that would definitely help with that. And the edit boxes and things too. Look, you can see here it shows the field that they're actually related to. I can search by the field name too, In this case, I'm finding, I typed in name, so I'm seeing the two fields on here, last name, first name.
There's a lot of times that I'm trying to find the field with a certain name is 500 field.
Yep. So this is a really great tool. You know, the more complex your layouts are, the more this is going to be beneficial for you.
You name it blue rectangle and pink rectangle?
Yeah, those are the object names in the inspector right
I
here.
just wanted to tell you the color.
No. It does colors and shapes. Really smart. That's not that smart, but so that's this icon right here, which is like the little 3 squares stacked on top of each other.
Do you know?
It's kind of like layers if you're working in Photoshop or something like that. It's kind of the same.
It's the Verisync logo, but square. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. The SQL Pro logo.
I think it's the data. That's the database icon. That's what they've got here on the right side too. That just means database if you're doing like a network diagram or data.
What's the keyboard shortcut for that?
I don't know. What is the keyboard shortcut for that? Is it View probably?
Layout objects, option, command T.
And option T. All right, there you go. Very useful. One of my favorite new features in 16. I've already used it a number of times to stop from having to break apart groups of objects and just find all those little missing things. You're like, there was a popover, I made it invisible. It's behind something else, I can't click it. You know, you have to click right on the edges to get it exactly right. And yeah, now you can just use this and you'll get it every time. Okay. So I'm not gonna save that. So a new feature of FileMaker Server and with WebDirect is the ability to generate PDFs on the server. This is something that everyone has wanted for a really long time. You know, we just couldn't do it before. If you wanted to generate a PDF, you had to have a FileMaker Pro client do it. You could have a robot empty client just sitting there waiting for commands and maybe running a script every few minutes or using a remote scripter. And you could trigger PDFs to generate, but you had to have like a machine open and something to log the user in and open up the FileMaker database. And it was a big pain. And WebDirect, it also didn't work in there. But with 16, you can now generate PDFs both in a server scheduled script and a perform script on server and through WebDirect, which is just fantastic. Being able to print through WebDirect, I think, adds a lot of usability to it. In this case here, if I run this script, I'm just going to say this new contract script. Using the script debugger, it's just going to do a perform script on server, and this is a script to generate a PDF. So I'm just going to run it. And we see here, it filled the PDF in here and stuck it in that container. In WebDirect, the way PDF generation works is there's a couple different options for it. If you do the print command, it will generate a PDF and open it up in a new window, like you had clicked on a PDF that your browser is going to handle and open it. If you do the save records as PDF script step, it'll give you a either a download dialog or download the file to whatever your default directory is if you've got a default downloads directory set. So it's very functional in there as well. This didn't actually show a preview of it on here, but I can save this. Where did I save it to?
Is it interactive?
Oh, let's go on the desktop. And this will open up here. This is the one we just did the generate on. So yeah, I was doing this and I made this, originally this was a active container where we could actually see the, set it for interactive content down here. But I don't know why it is. I was trying this before and it didn't load it all the way. It got about halfway here and stops. So I don't know what's causing that, but it works. And it's really nice being able to generate PDFs on the server. That's something that I'm very appreciative of. If you have a complex report that you're trying to generate and you're like, I need to gather all of these records and summarize them and then save it in a PDF, doing it on a client, it could take a long time because you have to transfer all those records to FileMaker Pro. It's got to download them all. You have to do all the sort on your client. The server is usually way faster. If you can do that on the server, it can cut the PDF generation time and the report time down quite significantly.
Why do you think this is?
I don't know. I just tried this before, and there might be some setting or something, I have to hit some confirmation dialog or hit OK on my computer. I think it's just an issue with something on my computer.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see here. We talked about the data viewer improvements already. Let's see here. One quick thing we can just talk about real quickly is a new feature to mention is that you can now use variables in your external data source paths. So if we do a path in here, you see down here at the bottom, it now also accepts variables. So it has to be a global variable because this isn't in the script, so it's not a local variable is not going to handle it. But you can use variables now, and so you can set that on open to use like get desktop path if someone's going to have a file on their desktop. This actually would have been really useful and would be really useful for a client that I've got who's using FileMaker 13, and I can't get them to upgrade, but this would be great for them because they're using MirrorSync. They've got a MirrorSync solution, and so we've got an auto update that happens where we download the new version of the file to their computer after they performed a sync, and it exports it, and then we can send some data from their current one to the new file, or we would be able to if we could use these variables for the paths for where this is coming down, because they can name their file anything they want. So this would be great for them to be able to, for us to be able to calculate paths of where external data sources are going to be. Like I said, they're still on 13, so they can't do that yet. But there are very good use cases for this.
One limitation I found with this is that you can't use it as a way to essentially call script by name. So for instance, if you have file A and it's got a script in it called do something, and that has an internal script ID of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have file B that has that's the same script with the same name, do something, but its internal ID is 20, for instance. Performs script on an external file reference using that variable will not work. It's still going to match it up by the ID.
Oh, that's very good to know.
So it's great if you're using it essentially with a copy of the same file.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily that useful for a file that was kind of created manually with different internal IDs.
Yeah. We're using MirrorSync, and hopefully everyone's using the same kind of copy of something, and we want to push out a new version of a file. Yeah, and maybe they've got their authentication information, whatever they put in there, some of their preferences. Using something like this with a variable in there for the path, make it really easy to transfer some of that file from some of the data from their old file to their new file using a variable like that. That's really good to know about the scripts by name not working. Okay, let's see here. All right, so one new feature in FileMaker Server. Let me open this one up here, 16 demo. I'll pull up my admin console. If you have a file hosted on FileMaker Server, you have the ability to use OAuth for authentication into databases. And what that is if you may see this on other websites you go to, they're like sign in with Google, sign in with Amazon, sign in with Facebook, that sort of thing, where they don't actually handle the authentication themselves. They pass it off to some third party, and they do the authentication, and just a token gets transferred around. If you've got clients who are using Active Directory, you might be doing something similar, where they're using FileMaker and external accounts, and you can have your users authenticate using Active Directory logins based on the domain that your server is a part of. But with 16, they've expanded that now. You also have support to do authentication through Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So if you have a client that's maybe not using Active Directory, or your server is not connected to Active Directory, and they're using Office 365 or Google Apps for Work or Amazon for authentication using IAM, you can configure FileMaker to connect to those authentication services and perform your authentication through there. So the way you enable that is in the FileMaker Server admin console, you go to the database server section, go to the security tab, and you change this from FileMaker accounts only, switch this to FileMaker and external server accounts. So there's a little bit more configuration for this than if you were using Active Directory and your server was already connected to that. If we want to enable this with for Google, for example, Oops, let me save this. So we click on this here. And what you do is you go into the Google API console, you create a new application, you set a few settings on there, and they give you a client ID and a secret, and you just copy and paste those values back here into your FileMaker server admin console. Once you've got those in, you just hit save and save your settings down here, and you'll be able to authenticate with OAuth. So I've got that set up on another server.
Like, I mean, all you're doing is you're basically proving that whoever's logging in has a Google account.
So you specify which specific accounts it's going to be for.
Oh.
So for example, we use Google Apps for work for managing our email as well. But if we wanted to push our authentication off to Google Apps, maybe someone's signed up for Google Apps and they're not using Active Directory. We got 10 people, we've got Google Apps, we have everyone's usernames and passwords in there. When you go into your solution, let me open this up. And let's pick the sample file here. You can go, oops, that's not, let me open up another one. I'll go to this one here. When you go in here to manage security, you can add new accounts here. You hit the new button. You select, instead of FileMaker, we can select this to be authenticated through Google. And now here we can specify which accounts we want to allow access to this for. So I could say david@bluefeathergroup.com, for example. Let's say we can give a full access account here. So I hit OK. And now, it's fine for you. All right. And now, in addition to logging in with my regular username for this file, I can now log in using Google and sign into Google with that account that I've just set up. So I just configured david@bluefeathergroup.com. I can sign into Google with that, and that will allow me in here. Yep, so I'm going to do that right now. Let's see if I've got a good file I can open this up. I actually have this configured on another server. And let's see, I've got it on this one here. So on this Outlook test file, I'm going to open this one up. So on this server, I've configured, I went onto the Google Apps console, and I set that set of options right here in the admin console. And when I connect to this server now with FileMaker Pro, I have a new option on here which says sign in with Google. So in addition to my FileMaker credentials here, I can instead select this sign in with Google option. When I click this, I think it might kick me through automatically. Oops, I disabled it. All right, let's first add it in. See what that looks like. So I'll go here, manage security. Get my password properly. All right, so let's add a new account onto this file. I'm gonna add the Google account on here, david@bluefeathergroup.com.
So it was giving you the Google icon there, but because there were no actual Google accounts, it's impossible that could have worked.
Right, yeah. But the server is configured for it. And so it knows when you're connecting the services, hey, do you want to give that a shot?
I'm actually surprised that you get the option to log in with Google when you're doing managed security, because you don't, even if you're like, I remember when you were messing around with Active Directory, you couldn't even like use your Active Directory account to get into managed security.
And you can use that here.
You can use it to get in. You can't use it to save your changes.
Okay.
Cannot. What did I do?
Billy, you were just typing your password?
Yeah, I'm just that bad at typing passwords, apparently. I use like a big, thick mechanical keyboard with the keys that go, the huge travel and everything like that. And then on this one, they have the micro travel keys. It's a very different experience. Apparently, I cannot adapt. All right, so we've got that configured. Let me just go to google.com. I'm going to sign out on here so we can see what that's going to look like.
Apologize to the viewing audience.
Hey everybody, so I disconnected us when I signed out to try to demo what it looks like to sign in. So we're back and we're going to continue now. Erica, is that back on the stream now? Can you see them there? All right. So that wasn't good. All right, so we're back in there. I might actually be able to sign in through here anyway.
Show us when you're signed in.
Yeah, let me open that file. Let's see here. We'll open this one up and let's see if I can sign in now. So it already has me signed in because I signed in just a second ago to get back into our live stream. But we can see it opened up a new tab in my browser with this crazy OAuth URL up here. If I wasn't already signed in, you'd get the regular Google prompt. It's like, oh, you want to sign in, put in your username and password, and you sign in through there, and then it kicks the message back to your server saying that you've successfully authenticated.
That's pretty nice, though.
You still have to add each account?
Yes. So with Active Directory, you can set up a group.
Yeah.
But with OAuth, you have to put each individual user account in there. So you'd be like, well, is that really going to save any time versus just putting in people's usernames and passwords? The one thing that it helps with is people don't have two sets of passwords that they have to manage. If you've got two-factor authentication set up for your Google account as well, that'll kick in with this. So it does provide some additional levels of security. It's unfortunate that you can't use groups because your domain can support groups. If you can, I haven't figured out how to do it yet. But yeah, you have to put in the individual user email accounts that they're going to be signing into Google with. So I think you could do it. I haven't tried it doing something outside of the domain that you created the API key on. So I don't know if you could do it just like with a regular Gmail account, just add someone's Gmail account on there and see if that would work or not. But that would be an interesting thing to try, I think. But it's kind of nice, as you saw when I was signing in here, I didn't have to enter a username and password because I'm already signed into Google. I just hit sign in with Google, and it's kind of like fake single sign-on, right? So I'm already logged into the browser, and so it just pushed me through, and I was able to get in without having to enter the username and password. OK, so let's move on to my favorite pair of features in 16, which is JSON and curl. Local version here. So FileMaker 16 adds support for generating and parsing JSON, and it's fast, and it's easy to use, and it's nice, and it expands. It gives you a lot of power with what you can do in your FileMaker solution. It's great for working within FileMaker. One of the things we were talking about earlier before we started the stream was passing parameters using JSON. So if you have multiple parameters that you want to pass in or complex sets of parameters, you can organize it in JSON really easily before you pass it in and then parse it inside your script once you receive that as a script parameter. It's also if you want to communicate with external web services, that like a REST web service. It's very common for services like that to send you data in JSON and accept data in JSON format. Before you would have to do this using plugins or there's some things on like modularfilemaker.com where there are some things you could drop in and it would generate JSON. Plugins were pretty quick. The native parsing was a little bit slower, but this is really fast, really easy to use. And you don't have to have the plugin for it, and it just works, and it's fantastic. So these are the new functions which handle JSON parsing. So delete element is the first one here, but this is the ones that you're going to use most frequently are going to be get element and set element. These are the two that are going to be the most useful things for you. Get element is used when you're trying to read a value from a JSON query, and set element lets you add data into your JSON package. Delete element, like it says on here, it lets you delete something from a set of JSON that you've got already. Format elements takes your JSON, which doesn't necessarily have to be pretty. It can be very ugly and compressed together, and formats it into a way that makes it really easy for you as a human being to read and understand. List keys lists the objects in a specific level of your JSON string or your JSON block of text, and list values does the opposite of it. Instead of getting keys, you get all the values for it. I'm not quite sure of the use case for list values, but I'm sure it's there. We'll take a look at that in a second here. So in this demo file, we'll post this up. They're kind of talking about what JSON is and how it's structured. But this is what a JSON object looks like. It's text, and you have keys like my number, and those keys have values, like in this case, -1, 2, 3, 4.99 to times 10 to the -10th. And there are a number of levels to this. So some of these are simple keys with values, like these first two, version 1.0 key and value. This object here is an object, and it has its own subset of keys and values and can be other objects. It's an infinitely nestable thing. You can take arrays in here as well. Here's an object called an array. And you can see that this is an array. There are many values for this one array object. Ya here is an array of objects. And so we're combining both an object and a set of objects in an array. And so this ya object is an array of 3 objects, which each have their own totally different sets of keys and values. So let's take a look and see how this actually works in FileMaker. So again, these are the custom functions. So here, this is going to use the, I'm just going to hit run on this. This is going to use the insert from URL script step. And it's going to get a chunk of text from a web service that provides information about where you are when you're connecting stuff to it. Where is it actually getting this from? Let's do the script debugger. So here it is, freegoip.net. So we're passing in an IP address, and it's telling us where that IP address, where it thinks that IP address is. So we use the insert from URL script step to query that web service and get this response back. We can use the JSON format elements function to make this a lot easier to read. This is not particularly human friendly. It's fine for working with the computers, but if you're trying to read it yourself, this could be made easier. We pass this as a parameter to JSON format elements. It reformats that and makes it a lot easier. Now it's very easy for us to see city, Oakland Park, country code, US, country name, United States. So if you're debugging it and you want to look and see what you've got in there, this is a good way to do it. It's not necessary for communicating with web services or passing it in as parameters if that's what we're going to be doing, but it does make it a lot easier for you to read it. So here's the list keys function that I mentioned before. This lists the keys. That's this left column here of the different values that are in this JSON object. And list values does the opposite of that. Lists all the things on the right side. I don't know, does anyone, like I said, I was thinking about this. I don't know when I would use list values like this.
You're trying to get the values like in an array in a friendly format.
I don't know how.
JSON is a friendly format.
Yeah.
So that's all the commas and everything. And if you just want to get rid of that real quick, you can just list the values.
If it was just an array and not a series of
if you want like, so in JavaScript you can just get the values, because in an array it might be in quote, it's in quotes and then commas and all that stuff. So you can get the whole value of the array, or you can just get all the values at once, or select values which you can't do it.
So it's more useful basically in an array than in a map.
There's some people who have done some stuff with it. You could like line up the keys and the values really fast at once. That's maybe not recommended because there's issues with if you have multi-line, multi-value values or something like that, then it won't line up perfectly.
I'm sure there's some use cases for this. I haven't thought of it just in the short time that I've been using it. But anyway, that's what that function does. The extremely useful one.
Like a search index in an unformatted text field that just had all the values that you could search on any one of them. So you could have a field where you could type in.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Or overland or zip code, and any one of those things would get you the same record. So you
didn't really care where it came from.
Didn't care where it came from. You just had some hidden field on there that just has all of the values.
Yeah, that's a really good use case for that. All right, and so this is the one that I think people will be using the most, which is JSON Get Element. You pass into this one the key that you're that you want to read some JSON value from, and it will give you that specific value. So if we look up Metro code here, it returns 616. It gets the specific value from the specific key that you've typed in there. We can do zip code. There it is, and evaluates it. So when you're communicating with web services or using JSON, if you're going to be doing that for script parameters, this is something that you're going to be doing all the time, which is reading these specific values. If it's a complex object, it'll return that sub object. So remember, we're talking about how JSON is nestable. If we make a new object on here, I'm going to say, let's just call this my object. I'm going to put in some other values in here. I'm going to say P1 is equal to 7. And P2, we'll say is going to be 8. Close that here. So if I get my object, oops.
You comment after the zip code one.
Yep. There we go. Correctly. Did I miss a quote? Commas there. No white space.
Can you go back to the error?
Yeah, line 13, column 2, missing comma. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Extra non-white space after JSON.
Have you reevaluated the calculation?
This might have something else going on it here. Hold on a second. See if this isn't formatted correctly. Yeah, I definitely mistyped something in there. All right, well, anyway. This is why FileMaker has these great functions and you don't have to do this by hand. There we go, okay. Did I get that right there? All right, I just had the extra comma. Let's take this extra comma out. Let's evaluate it now.
Evaluate something else and go back.
Yeah, it might not. It's odd. There we go.
So it's actually caching values even when you're changing it.
I think it might have something to do with the script triggers on here. I don't think it's reading it straight from the thing. There's a script trigger on here, and we can check and see what it's doing. I think I might have actually fixed it earlier by removing the white space and the commas on there, but it didn't reevaluate it until I triggered something else. So, but again, FileMaker gives us some really nice functions so that we don't have to do that by hand. So let's go through here, and we can delete an element. So where's my object? This has some sub things in it too. We'll use delete element and run it, and that'll take the whole thing out. So that was a whole object we just deleted. We can do individual lines on here as well. Take them all out.
So delete essentially just, it doesn't modify the field that you're doing it on. It returns a new modified version of it.
Yes, so these are all custom functions. You can use them with, like I said, variable script step or set field script step, anywhere you can type in a calculation, and it returns a block of text, and then you have to, exactly, yeah.
It's never modifying the original.
That's right, yeah. Okay, and so here's the set element one. Here's the other part. That's the thing. We don't have to do this stuff by hand. We can set city in here. We'll say Atlanta. And now this is an interesting thing here, and I'll show this in a little bit. When you're setting an element using this set element function, this takes 3 parameters. So the first one is the element that you want to set. The second parameter is the value. And the third parameter is the type of JSON object that you're working with. These are a little weird because they're not custom functions, and the calculation engine will not auto-complete these for you. You do not pass this as a string. This is text that you type in. I'll show this to you in the calculation thing a little bit, to pick which kind of data you're submitting. What this is for the JSON evaluation engine, the JSON parsing engine, to handle the data, to kind of help it a little bit with what you're submitting. So if I say that this is a string and I say Atlanta up here, it's going to put it in as a string. If I change this to a Boolean and I type in Atlanta, it puts in false, because Atlanta evaluates to false if we were doing this as a true false. It's like it uses the same calculation values as FileMaker does. So
Atlanta would be true.
would Atlanta be true? Okay, but that's what they were saying.
Anything, the word false or a 0 would be false.
Yeah, I think you're.
But the word Jesse or squirrel or whatever is true.
Okay, I think what it does is lowercase true. So let's find this here. FileMaker JSON set element. I was looking at this earlier. I think I got that backwards.
I wonder if that's a JavaScript as opposed to FileMaker.
It could be.
And JavaScript has a different set of rules.
See here, it's the same way as the test parameter of is in the if function. It says.
Because if you say if Atlanta, that's true.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I think we can do get as Boolean.
Try if Atlanta.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
So that returns false here.
Huh.
Can you do if Atlanta?
Yeah, let's do. I'll do a little script, and we'll see.
We're in the script. You just do it in an if function.
Is it says in the if function or in the if? I mean, I think they would evaluate the same way, but
Yeah, either way. Either way, script or.
I'd hope they evaluate the same way. Oops.
What about if 5? What about if 5 in quotes? Okay, that's
Wait, what about 0 in quotes?
0 in quotes. Let's see here. I think it seems like when we put numbers in there, it's taking it as a number and evaluating it from that. But if it detects letters in there, it's not.
Yes, I've only ever used it in numeric value.
Yeah.
I wonder how it works on a script though, but we don't have to do that now.
Okay, but you know, that's what we're here. We're going to figure all these things out. So null, if you pass a null here, it'll actually set the value to null rather than having, rather than actually having, I think it'll do it. Yeah, it'll actually set it in there to null. So rather than trying to type in null, if we want to do it as a string, type in the word null. That's the string null that just got put in there. Yeah.
If you put quotes, just an empty string as a string.
Like that?
Yeah.
I think we'll get escaped.
Does it have to have a value?
Now this may be because it's in a field here, so it might be processing a little bit.
Go back to Atlanta again and do object.
We do this as an object. So put nothing in there because it's an object. We didn't give it any valid JSON object contents. So it goes through a parser first. Now I think we can break this as well. If we type in Atlanta, I've not still in it. So we do raw here. It's going to handle that as a string. JSON raw says, don't try to interpret what I'm sending so much. Just send it through the parser and let it handle it how it's going to do it. Versus like Boolean, where it's going to convert our values to be these Boolean values. So let's see what time is it now here. 8 o'clock. Let's do some tests with some of these things.
I think that raw wouldn't have quotes to it. It seems like raw.
Okay, so raw, it doesn't just set it, it still passes it through a parser. So it just doesn't do FileMaker's interpretation of it before sending it to the parser.
So raw would be different than just putting blank quotes in the type field.
What do we do if we said nothing? We could try it, and then let's go back to that and see if we just don't.
It does its best in gas,
Yeah.
which is very bad.
We do raw with nothing in here. I think this is going to empty quotes versus, but I think that's also because we're passing in, you know, we're it's doing it from a field versus like a calculation for it. So let's see, whoops, what this might look like. Do some stuff with this. So I'll do this in here. We'll use the new calculation thing and do some let variables here. So we'll do this here, and we'll say my test start JSON. How about that? Call this JSON, not JSON. JSON. I'm going to start this by just saying this is going to be an empty object here. This is an empty JSON object, and we can see here my result is nothing. So let's add an element onto this. So I'm going to say JSON equals, and I'm going to do JSON set element. And so this is the weird part about how we handle this. So here we're going to pass in the JSON that we're already working with. If we're working with something, I'm going to pass in my empty JSON object from before. The key that I'm going to set here is we're going to say city. Value, we're going to set to be Atlanta. And this is the type thing. This is just a little bit of a strange behavior. We're not going to type the type in quotes. It's not, doesn't autocomplete for us, but we will say JSON string. Doesn't even see this as a valid thing on here. Mm-hmm.
You know, to pull that from a field. Or
No, it's got to be.
I've been trying to do that. Trying to find out how to figure out what this works.
And so that does it. These are the values here.
Then how did the layout do it? Oh,
It's doing some scripts and
branches. Okay.
Let's see, we can look and see what that script did. Let's go back to our parsing on here. So these are the types that you can pass in here: string, number, object, array, Boolean, null, and raw. And so this is a required parameter for this. You can't skip it. It's just a little bit weird that it's not a string.
Seems like you just always leave it raw. And do whatever you want.
I mean, I think you'd be okay most of the time. Null might be one exception to that, because I think null is going to try to pass in.
So what I was asking before is that if you can actually do it, you can actually just put quotes in the type field, the last parameter.
Here?
Yeah, and then it'll guess, I believe. So I was wondering if it's the same as doing wrong. But
That's
don't
a question.
do that because now if you do 15 Atlanta and this is city field, it's going to come out wrong. It's going to come out as a number. So it doesn't work with the GUIDs.
So you can't do like.
So JSON raw, that's what we do JSON string.
So JSON raw doesn't work either. It's
JSON
like-
raw.
Yeah. JSON raw is giving us some weird values here.
Yeah, so I think JSON raw is the same thing as leaving the type field blank. So it's not very good for doing like modular stuff.
Let's do Atlanta 15. So that one, I guess, because it didn't start with a number. So I guess there could still be some use cases for that. If you have some.
You could also just go ahead and do everything as JSON string,
I was
maybe
just
because
gonna say,
JSON get it gives you
Oh,
text anyways. Even if you have a number, it doesn't matter. It's going to be text.
So do everything as a string.
Yep. Unless it's an object that you want to pass in there to further embed things. I don't know, maybe string would work
For
anyway.
60 years, and we come up with a single data type, string.
Let's try making a sub object here.
Still works.
Abstraction at its finest.
We need more than one data type.
So we'll make a sub object here. Let's see here, we're gonna do this one. And we'll start this blank, and I'm going to say sub object equals JSON set element, and then we're going to do this to be sub object We'll set a key here, which will be color blue. And type here, we're going to do JSON string. Add another element to this. Oops, if I can spell that. Object. Nope. Let's see here, flavor. Oops. Okay, so let's take a look and see what that is. We've got our object now, JSON. And let's change this to see what the sub-object looks like. Here we go. This is our sub-object. Let's format that. If we want to make this look a little bit nicer, we can do JSON format elements. And put that on here. So this gives us our more human-readable format for that. And let's add the sub-object into our main JSON object. So we will do, let's do another one here. JSON equals, and we're going to do JSON set element. Our key, so this is an interesting thing here. When we were doing the set element before, we were passing in a key that we were going to have a value for. In this case, we don't want to set a particular key. We want to set kind of a level that we want to insert our object in. And the way we do that to say this is going to be in our base level is to use a period. It's kind of like saying it's a root here. So I'm going to put in sub object. And now we can try these different types here.
I think you're overriding the whole JSON.
Oops, yeah, was I doing that there? I wanted to set the sub-object on here.
If you pass in a key, won't it just create?
Oh, you're right. This is another object. I do need to give it a thing. I'm going to call it my object. There we go. That's what I need to do. Yeah, it was. I was replacing the whole thing with it. So, so there we go. And so now we've created a kind of a multi-level object that we can work with here. Now, if we want to read one of these values, we can use JSON read element. So we saw in the little demo about reading it from the first level in. But let's do this down here. I'm going to add some string characters. Let's see here. We're going to do okay. And so let's try to read a value now from that nested object. I'm going to do JSON Get Element. The JSON that we're going to read from is going to be our JSON test object that we have here. And so let's read, I can cut this out here. We're going to read from the my object color. Pass that in there, and that's how we can read that sub-object. So we're saying in our first level, we're going to get first the my object. It's called my object. We're reading from here. And then we put a dot after that to say, go into that object and read the key color from that.
We don't have to like actually do it right now, but if it was an array instead of an object, is there some syntax that you can use to reference a specific index?
Yes. So you would use brackets with a number in it to specify. So if we had an array of colors here, yeah, or if we had an array of my objects, we'd get the fifth one. And then actually what we're saying is from that object, in this case, get the color value from that fifth object. So
and you can also do multi-level arrays by using commas. Yes.
Yeah. And so one thing important to note on this too is JSON is 0 indexed, while FileMaker is 1 indexed. And so if you're doing something that's in a loop, you just got to keep that in mind, that your first object in an array in JSON is going to be object 0, where you might be very used to using 1 as your first object in FileMaker.
I think this is the first time anything has been 0 indexed in FileMaker. Even their JDBC driver is like 1 indexed.
Oh, I think they got, I don't know if this was like a decision from them. I know this dot and bracket thing is kind of a standard way of writing and like getting JSON objects. So I think it might have been.
It would be when you're actually working with real JSON and if it was one base.
So that's how you read these values, which are nested multiple levels in. You either do these dots or brackets to get to them, and you can start with the dot as well, and that'll also work. If you're saying the root level, the current level.
I've been writing my JSON statements slightly differently for that subject object, for example. Like instead of setting multiple lines like that, you can use brackets for each line within that. So instead of saying subject or subobject equals the braces and then set that thing, you can just do brackets around the subobject color blue JSON string and then another set of brackets around flavor vanilla JSON string.
Right, like how you can do multiple substitutions in one substitute.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly like that. So that's the way I've been writing it, just to put that out there. You can do like substitution type notation as well.
Yeah, you can it's all infinitely embeddable, so you could you could have your own block. In this case, what we did here is we had a block of JSON, and we did set element just on the one thing, but you could have some stuff already preset and just kind of drop it in there as one element. And it'll work.
The JSON set element function can actually take multiple parameters.
For
multiple sets.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, let me see that. What we do here, so we would do color, and then what, another semicolon here? Or another thing here, another key?
Put a colon in front of color, or sorry, open bracket in front of color. In front of it.
Oh, in front of it, yeah.
Put it like that. And then after it'll be easier if you put it on different lines, so it's readable, but you can.
And then another semicolon.
Yeah, and then you can get rid of the JSON set element around all of that until flavor. Yeah. And put another bracket after JSON string. And this is really helpful also when you want to embed like objects within objects within objects, because you would think you would have to, like, if you just want it to be one calculation, you have to keep doing JSON set element. Here, now do you can do like color dot shape and pick something and it'll show up in there. Yeah, well you can
that works.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, it's just a flavor thing, but I find it a little bit more readable to.
Rather than calling that JSON set element over and over and over again. Yeah, no, that's really great. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that.
So really, you can probably just use JSON set element once for even very complex.
And write it like that.
Yeah, in fact, you see how you're calling it twice there, sub-object? Like, I just call it once and set, the brackets or the braces rather in the first call.
We can do an array somewhere.
Yeah, if you want to do an array, you would do the one, you put a 0 after shape, and then do the first one, and then do that again, and do a 1 index, and then put the second color.
Shape blue doesn't make sense. All right.
Yeah. So you can copy paste that, and you can change the index to 1. You can put a new shape in.
Cool. And so now look down here too, where we're reading it. We're doing myObject.color. We probably want to do myObject.color.shape, and then maybe read the first value, or we'll read the second value there. And let's do 1 to read that, the value from the array.
And then I'll do this for the array.
So if you can do this, you see where you're setting the sub-object twice. Get rid of the first one and just put the braces into the second statement. And yeah, that's
in the string here like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I usually end up writing. Well, get rid of sub-object.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's what you're saying. Yeah, we can do that too.
Yeah, that's how I end up
Yeah,
writing
that
those things.
definitely makes sense to do that.
So it's really easy to write really complex JSON in one thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely looks like it. And then I'm gonna call it over and over again.
There's no way that I found yet to insert an element like in the middle of an array. So you gotta.
We'll renumber the whole thing you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So if you have an array of like 10 objects and you want to insert an object into number 5, rather than set it so now you have 11 objects, but you don't want to put it at the end. You gotta
do everything.
Yeah, you gotta loop or something. Yeah. There's no way to even get a range of an array.
So yeah, this is a great set of features, very fast. We did it in the new calculation dialog here for the data viewer. And those are some great tips also, so thank you guys very much for that. And so yeah, like I said, it's much faster than parsing it would have been in FileMaker before. Using native things, there was some, like you turned it to let notation, and there's some crazy ways of doing it. But this is really quick, super fast, really easy to do. And when you get used to writing it like this, very easy to create JSON correctly. And then you don't run into those issues that we had before, like where'd that comma go? And just everything was broken.
And it's cool because you, as you can see, you can have like sub-parameters of a parameter that has multiple repetitions. So that way you can do a lot more complex stuff without having to do some weird naming thing for variables.
Yep. Yeah, for parameters, I thought, right? Yeah, very good. And one thing FileMaker actually shows in here. Let me close this. In their little demo section. Here they do use it as passing parameters. If you look at the script debugger, we do image viewer by ID. They're doing JSON set element, the braces, and then ID 8. So when you get in here and we read the parameter, they're setting it as a value parameters.json. Let me take a look at it. Where's it on here? What do they call it? There it is. There we go. Some simple JSON. They're using this just like what you're talking about as a script parameter, so that they can down here and check and see what kind of script parameter was passed to it. They're looking for, if they say is tag there or is ID there. If ID is there, they go down one path. Oops, I clicked over that too much. Anyway, if ID is there, it does one thing. If they pass a different parameter through the JSON, they handle it a different way. ID loads a particular picture, for example. If they pass that ID in there, they pass a tag. They're getting a found set, and then it'll go through the found set. Here they're also using it. This actually I really like a lot as for creating a custom dialog. This is a generic card layout that just has 2 global value set, and then you can call it using JSON to do a custom dialog. And I think that looks really nice versus one of the standard, custom dialog script steps. And you could reuse that over and over anywhere.
And you can control it too, because with the custom dialog,
yeah, and then text gets cut off.
It's weird. And
so let's take a look at it. You can see how the card works for that too. Let's see if we go to the dialog. So this is what that card layout looks like. It's just really simple. And it's got 2 globals in it. And then, like you said, you can control the size and the position, and it's a little prettier looking than one of the standard dialogues, which is nice. And you could do that in a script here. And that's what they did. It's a script you could just drop this in anywhere, show dialog, and pass in your JSON parameters. So just set those fields and work. So I think it's really nice. Now another use case that they're thinking about for this is using settings as well. So rather than having maybe a whole bunch of fields, you can store all of your user settings in JSON. So here we add a flag here and it just drops it in.
Why have records in
Well, that's how some things work. So if you use like a WordPress site and you create custom objects like non-post objects or using stores and things like that, they'll create a whole bunch of records. But then rather than having separate fields for all of those things, it stores all of your data about your object in JSON in one field for that thing. And I think that's how a lot of NoSQL databases will work too.
MongoDB or something like
Yeah,
that.
they don't have a whole bunch of different fields. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of JSON objects stored in single fields. So a little weird, but there are a lot of use cases for that, I guess, and performance seems to be pretty good because a lot of systems are adopting that. So I'm sure as everyone gets more experience with these things, we will find cases for JSON that I'm sure will be some really interesting and exciting things. Okay, so it's 8:30 now. We've got some more stuff that we can talk about too. I'll mention, because I don't want to go too late with these things too. We'll do some things quickly. Let's open up this test file again.
I totally said it'd be helpful.
Okay.
But there's any panels come up.
Okay, great, thanks. So one of the new things that will help you use JSON to communicate with web services is the insert from URL script step. So insert from URL has been there for a while. You know, we've had this one for a number of versions now, but there's a lot of new functionality in the insert from URL script step, which lets us do a lot more than we could before. So one thing which I love is rather than having to specify a field, which is what you had to do before, you can now do insert from URL to a variable. So I can use this as, I'm going to call this like response. And yeah, so it didn't have to be on a layout before, but it had to be insert field and needed to, or sorry, insert container. You had to have the container on the layout. But insert from URL, you'd still just have to have a field somewhere to hold this, and you might not need it.
You didn't need it on the layout?
Not for insert from URL, I don't think. I know for insert file.
I was true. So.
Yeah, insert file you do, because you have to pick the container and it has to go to it, and actually it has to be there on the layout somewhere. But I don't think you needed it from insert from URL. I could be incorrect about that. But now, so we can set it, and it'll go to a variable here, which is fantastic. So it's a little odd the way it lists it out there, but it is extremely useful. And so another feature of this, which is new, is this specify curl options. Now Eric and I have had a fun time working with these things, and what this is here is it's a calculation which you can evaluate, and you specify parameters for this the same way you would if you were using the curl command line I guess program essentially to do that. So for example, if we wanted to if we were going to post data, we can use the -x post option like this, and this will post. This means that we're going to be sending a post for what we're going to be doing. If we want to, we could do a whole other session on this. I probably shouldn't go into these things too much. There are a lot of options that you can do here. You can specify headers. We can do like -h to specify headers, and we can do like from this. We have to escape it and you have to use double quotes. You have to escape it. You cannot use single quotes for this, even though that works normally for curl and command line. You have to use double quotes here. We can do like content type. We do like what, HTML, text, HTML, like this. I think that's right. But you have to use double quotes, and you have to escape it. But you can set headers now. You can get your response code. You can read your headers back. The way you read headers from this is a little odd, and like I said, this is too much. But insert from URL. This is kind of a FileMaker specific thing. Where do they have it on here? There you go, supported curl options. So there's a lot. This is the list. FileMaker has it on their website. You can specify your headers, for example, using the header command here. We did it as I did it as a lowercase h. It definitely needs to be a capital H. And you can get responses back from this as well. And you can specify it in a variable that it's going to go to when it's done. Where was that option on here? dump header. Here we go. So for example, if we wanted to get headers back, let's do this one as capital H. We can actually specify D here, and then we can specify a FileMaker variable we want our header values from this to actually go back into. So it'll create a new local variable when we pass the parameter in like this. So you can also do files. You can post files this way. You can use container data. If we had a variable, for example, that had container data in it, we can use that if we were going to post it. I think we use lowercase d to send data. Is that what it is there? Yep. And if this was a container, we could do this. If it was container data, we could do like this container, and you specify an @ in front of it, and then your data variable that you want to post. It could be a file or it could be FileMaker data, and that'll allow you to send JSON or upload a file to a web service. So there's a lot to talk about here, and it's getting late. But insert from URL now is extremely, extremely powerful. There's a lot you can do with it. It's really useful and fast, and takes a little bit of learning, but it's really worth looking into. All right, just to mention a couple other quick things too. There's FileMaker 16 supports new custom script steps from plugins. So plugin developers can make not just custom functions, but now actually custom script steps. There are new encryption functions. So we've got some native encrypt AES and decrypt. The scripts, they're custom functions, so they show up in here. We'll do like crypt. So there's crypt auth code, crypt decrypt, encrypt, and it can encrypt base64 as well. So you can have either a container object as your result, container data, or text using base64. And there's also another big thing which we're not really going to have time to get into because it is getting extremely late here, which is the new beta test sort of for the FileMaker data API, which is a REST API that's available through FileMaker Server. It's currently, they call it a trial, the data API trial, and it's going through like September 2018, and then you are going to have to pay for it. There's going to be a licensing cost for access through there. I have no idea what it's going to be, but it is kind of nice that we have it now. Instead of doing XML, you can query your database and get JSON results using the data API. So that's a whole other session as well. But we covered a lot of stuff here. Let's see, there's other, you can copy and paste value lists now, which you couldn't do before. I think it's a list of my features and things to talk about. I guess we're going to wrap things up here. Does anyone have any questions about? All right. We had some pretty good participation from people here too. You guys had some great tips about the JSON parsing and creation.
For those who are using it, which features do you think are the
for users, for end users,
developers?
for end users to say the Windows interface changes are really good. For developers, I love the curl and JSON. That is indispensable. I mean, I've been using plugins in so many solutions to be able to communicate with web services, and having that all be native and fast is absolutely indispensable. That is, I think, the biggest feature of FileMaker 16, having that be native and so quick and so powerful. There's so much you can do with it. That is my #1 feature of FileMaker 16 for sure.
Yeah, the cards though. I haven't used the cards yet.
That's also, I mean, that's a big one too.
You don't have to do popovers anymore. You don't have that nasty little triangle for one thing, but also like you can actually create something that you can use anywhere. And you know, so the popover was like the main example of when you select a connector. You select the copy and paste the popover everywhere, and if you ever made a change where you had to find all the places that you use that popover and copy and paste it in now, just one place.
Yeah. And that reminded me too, another feature that's in 16 that we did mention here. I was going to do a demo of that. On FileMaker Go on the iPad, there are now animations for transitions between layouts, so you can have things slide nicely from different ways, coming from the top or the side.
Those animations are only good for Go, right?
That's right. It only works in FileMaker Go, but it is really nice, and it does give you a more native feeling experience from that. So it's really good.
Did FileMaker 16 do any improvements to containers?
Not that I know of. I think everything was done in 14, and I don't know if there've been any changes since then.
This isn't super relevant, but I was just looking at the deprecation list, and they removed, you can't do store as a reference only. And
Yeah. Is that actually out now, or is that just deprecated at this point?
It was on one of those two lists. I
Mhm.
can't remember, but yeah.
Would like a reference on your
Yeah.
computer?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
What is out? What did they take out? Anything?
I don't know.
There's a couple of random functions, like I think get window orientation. It doesn't work anymore.
Because that one I know has been deprecated for a couple versions.
Right.
It doesn't work on. It hasn't worked on iPad for a while, but
Yeah.
it still works on iPhone as far as 15.
Mm.
Kind of, not well, but
I can't remember exactly, but there were a few other things. I know the standby server was actually just deprecated in 16.
Really? That was just introduced in 14.
What was the standby server?
That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
you have two servers running, one of them you bring down and the other one comes up.
they have to have the same specs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was really weird and very limited, and it wasn't automatic either. So
And what is that on the
Backup seemed like a
console?
better
This is
solution.
Worker machine. What is that about?
Oh, they actually beefed that up. You can now have up to like the worker machines refer to like having multiple machine deployment. So you'll have your database server, FileMaker server, and then you could have a separate machine where your web publishing engine would live, and then you typically call that your worker machine.
Okay.
It's just a way of kind of reducing load on your main database server if you've got a bunch of users.
yeah, because I think you said you can go up to 500 people with WebDrive now, or
Right.
501, I think, or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
There's a guy, you going to DEF CON?
I'm going to DevCon. Yeah. I'm going.
I wish I were going to DevCon. I went to DevCon a few times in years past, but work stopped paying for it.
Yeah, DevCon's great. You learn a lot there. If you have an opportunity to go, definitely take the trip out there.
I'm putting that on my perpetual wannabe.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty good here. I'm gonna let's go back out of here.
Strap a camera to your head.
Did they have any chat questions?
There was one clarification, I answered it.
Oh, okay. Good. You chatted in there. All right. Great. All right. So I think we're all done. Thanks everyone for watching online.
Thank
And,
you.
thanks a lot.